There was a man who built the perfect life. A good job, a loving family, a house with a yard, the whole picture. And one Tuesday morning, he sat in his car in the driveway and could not make himself go inside. He just sat there, engine off, hands on the wheel, staring at nothing. And he didn't know why. He had everything, and yet something inside him felt like a room that hadn't been opened in years, dark, dusty, and full of things he was afraid to touch. That man was real, and if you've ever had a moment like that, a quiet, unexplainable weight that no amount of success or routine or positive thinking could lift, then this video is for you. Because what I'm about to share with you today is the thing most people spend their whole lives running from. And it might be the only thing that can actually set you free. Before we get into it, if you're new here, hit that subscribe button right now. Because what we talk about on this channel isn't surface level motivation. It's the deep, uncomfortable, life-changing stuff that actually works. We're building a community of people who are serious about real growth, not just the highlight reel version. So subscribe, stick around, and let's go somewhere most people aren't willing to go. His name was Daniel, and on paper, Daniel was doing everything right. He exercised every morning, he read the books, listened to the podcasts, wrote in his gratitude journal, said his affirmations, woke up at 5 a.m. like every productivity guru told him to. He was disciplined, he was consistent, and he was quietly falling apart. The anxiety never left. The relationships felt hollow. He kept exploding at the people he loved over small things and then hating himself afterward. He'd smile in meetings and scream in traffic. He'd post about growth online and feel like a fraud by the time he closed the app. And the maddening part was that he couldn't explain it. He was doing everything right. So why did he feel so wrong? Here's what nobody tells you about self-improvement. The part most productivity channels won't touch with a 10-foot pole. Growth that only happens on the surface doesn't last. You can build the best morning routine in the world, but if you've never looked at why you wake up anxious in the first place, that routine is just a very disciplined way of running from yourself. And most of us are running. We've been running since we were kids because somewhere along the way we learned that certain parts of us were not acceptable. The anger was too much. The sadness was too weak. The neediness was embarrassing. The ambition was arrogant. The jealousy was shameful. And so we pushed those parts down, buried them deep, told ourselves we were better than that, more evolved, more in control, and those parts didn't die. They never die. They just went underground. And that's where the real problem starts. The most dangerous lie in the self-help world is that if you just stay positive enough, work hard enough, optimize your routine enough, you can outrun the parts of yourself that hurt. You can't. Nobody can. What you resist persists. And what you refuse to feel doesn't disappear. It just starts running your life from behind the curtain, making decisions you can't explain and triggering reactions you can't control. Research backs this up. Studies on emotional suppression have shown that when people consistently avoid or bury uncomfortable emotions, their stress levels don't go down, they go up. The amygdala, the part of your brain wired for fear and survival, becomes hyperactive. You become more reactive, less rational, quicker to anger, quicker to collapse. The very act of avoiding your darkness makes the darkness stronger. But here's where the story changes. Because Daniel eventually did something that terrified him. He stopped running. It started small. A therapist he almost didn't see recommended something called internal family systems, a modern psychological framework that maps your mind as a collection of different parts, each with its own needs, fears, and histories. And what Daniel discovered in those sessions shook him. The rage that came out sideways at his wife, it was protecting a much younger, much more frightened part of him. A boy who was told over and over again that his emotions were too much, that he was too sensitive, that real men didn't feel all of that. The anger wasn't the problem. The anger was a guard dog standing in front of a wound. There's a quote that has stayed with me since the first time I read it. The cave you fear to enter holds the treasure you seek. And I want you to sit with that for a moment. Because every person watching this right now has a version of that cave, a conversation you keep avoiding, a feeling you keep suppressing, a pattern in your relationships you know is there but refuse to examine, a version of yourself you've kept locked away because someone, somewhere, told you it was too much, too broken, too ugly to be seen. And what if the version of you that's been hiding in there is actually the one you've been looking for this whole time? Daniel started journaling differently. Instead of writing about goals and gratitude and what he wanted to accomplish, he started asking harder questions. What emotions am I most uncomfortable feeling? When did I first learn that anger was dangerous? Who told me that needing people was weakness? What parts of myself have I been pretending don't exist? And the answers that came back surprised him. They were tender, honest, achingly human. He wrote about his father, who was distant and critical and never once told him he was enough. He wrote about the version of himself at 9 years old who cried and was told to stop being dramatic. He wrote about the ambition he'd always felt, but buried under false humility because he was afraid of what people would think if he actually wanted more. He wrote about the jealousy he felt toward friends who seemed to have it easier, and the guilt that immediately followed because he'd spent his whole life telling himself he wasn't the kind of person who felt jealous. And here's what happened. He didn't become a worse person for admitting all of that. He became more free, because you cannot heal what you refuse to see. You cannot integrate what you keep exiling. The parts of you that feel darkest, most shameful, most unspeakable, those are the parts that need the most compassion. Not judgment, not suppression, not another affirmation plastered over a wound that never closed. Compassion, curiosity, the willingness to sit with yourself in the discomfort and say, I see you, I hear you. You don't have to fight anymore. If you've made it this far in the video, and I'm genuinely glad you have, I want to ask you something. Drop a comment below and tell me, what's one part of yourself you've been afraid to look at? You don't have to go deep, even one word. Angry, lonely, ashamed, lost, whatever comes up. Because naming it is the first step to no longer being controlled by it. And share this video with someone who needs it, someone who's doing all the right things and still feels off, someone who's grinding but secretly hurting. Because this conversation matters and it doesn't happen enough in places like this. Here's what I want you to understand before this video ends. The people who transform their lives, not just their habits, not just their morning routines, but their actual lives, their relationships, their capacity for joy, they are not the people who found the perfect system. They are the people who were brave enough to stop performing and start feeling. They are the people who looked at the parts of themselves they were most ashamed of and said, I'm not going to run anymore. They are the people who did the hard, invisible, unglamorous work of understanding where their patterns came from. And then slowly, painstakingly, with kindness toward themselves, chose differently. That is real transformation. Not the kind you can post about after day 3 of a new routine. The kind that changes how you show up in a room. The kind that makes your relationships feel safer and deeper. The kind that lets you look in the mirror at the end of the day and feel, maybe for the first time, like you actually know the person looking back at you. Daniel, who sat paralyzed in his driveway 2 years ago, is not the same man today. He still has hard days. He still catches himself wanting to shut down or lash out. But now he knows what's happening when he does. He can pause. He can ask. He can find the part of him that's scared and sit with it instead of letting it run the show. His marriage is better than it's been in a decade. He said yes to a dream he'd buried since his 20s. He laughs more, not the performed laugh, the real one. The one that comes from a chest that isn't clenched tight with everything he's been holding back. That is available to you. Not on the other side of a perfect routine or a new journal or the next motivational video you find. On the other side of your own willingness to look. Just start. Pick one question. What emotion do I most avoid? What trait in others makes me the most uncomfortable? And could that be something I've rejected in myself? When was the last time I let myself be fully honest about what I'm feeling, with no performance, no editing, no shame? You don't need to have it all figured out. You don't need to be ready. You just need to be willing. And if this video moved something in you, if it opened even a small door in a room you've kept closed, then don't let that feeling pass without acting on it. Write something, reflect on something, share this with someone. Subscribe if you haven't already, because we're going to keep going deeper together. And remember this, the most powerful version of you isn't hiding behind a better habit. It's waiting in the place you've been most afraid to look. Go there. You are more than ready.